winos! I'm Devana and I'll be your server this evening. If you've ever ordered a bottle of wine at a restaurant, you're familiar with the little song and dance that comes along with it. Or you're not and it's a super awkward experience. Well, today, Phineas the Poro and I will be demonstrating the whole thing, so next time you can order wine like a pro and totally impress that Tinder date. Let's get started. The first thing you do when you order a bottle of wine is, of course, pick the wine. Some restaurants have wine lists like novels and others only have a few pages, but either way, it'll probably feel overwhelming because honestly, it's overwhelming to me too. And yes, it is totally fine to shop by price. I've heard rumors out there, like the second least expensive wine is always the worst quality because it's the one that most people order, and so they want to make the most money on it. But I don't think restaurants actually do that because no decent restaurant is going to stock a wine that they think is poor quality. So if that's the wine that you want, don't let that scare you off. If you do want to order the least expensive wine and be kind of low-key about it, you can always ask for the house. There's usually one red and one white, and it's what you'll get if you don't order anything specific. So if you just say, I want a Chardonnay, then you'll get the house Chardonnay. If you want to be really fancy, you can order a wine based on the food that you're going to order. I have a really helpful video on food pairing that I'll link to in the description that will walk you through exactly how to do that. When in doubt, the best thing to do is to ask the restaurant sommelier or even your server. They've tasted some of the wines and they're trained to answer your questions. So if they're anything like the wonderful people I've worked with, they will be more than happy to pick out something awesome for you. Okay, so Phineas has picked his wine, which has made him the host of the table, or the dedicated wine wizard who is in charge of the whole process from now on. When the server comes back to your table, they'll hold out the wine to you like this. Don't grab it or anything. This is just for you to confirm that the wine you ordered is the wine that's in front of you. Make sure you double check the name and the varietal of the wine because a lot of restaurants stock different wines by the same producer. So the labels will look the same and it's totally possible the server might have messed them up. If it isn't right, you should just say, oh, I'm sorry, I was actually hoping to have the blank wine. If the wine is right, just say, yes, that's perfect, and they'll begin to open it. Once your server removes the cork, they may place it on the table in front of you. You don't have to smell it or lick it or anything really. You should just check it out a little bit to make sure it looks okay. If the cork is dry and shriveled up or God forbid moldy, it's a clue that something might be wrong with the wine as well. If it's a screw cap or a glass top, then there's nothing to check. The server will then pour a little bit of wine in your glass for you to taste. You'll smell it and then taste it. This is a super important step because it gives you an opportunity to check for any wine faults. I'm gonna go over a few of the most common ones now, and I'm gonna have to get a little bit sciencey for a second, so bear with me. The first is volatile acidity. Volatile acidity is caused by a bacteria that creates acetic acid, which is basically vinegar. As a byproduct, it also creates ethyl acetate, which is basically nail polish remover. So if you get a wine and it smells like vinegar or nail polish remover, that's not a characteristic of the wine, that's a fault. Let the server know and they'll be able to get you a new bottle of the same wine, because it's usually a bottle-to-bottle fault. The next one is Brettanomyces, affectionately referred to as Brett. Picture Brett as this super cool cowboy dude that rides horses all day and spends a lot of time in barns. He basically smells like sweaty horse all the time. Now, some of you may love hanging out with Brett and think he smells awesome. Plenty of beer brewers happily invite Brett to drink with them. On the other hand, some of you may be city folk that prefer people that bathe a little more often and have Yorkies instead of horses. For the latter type of person, having Brett join you for a glass of wine would not be pleasant. Therefore, you should tell the server that you don't like this man and you would like him escorted away from your table. You may actually want to select an entirely new wine because Brettanomyces might be something that the winemaker intentionally included a little bit of for a certain flavor profile. It can absolutely be considered a fault, but the degree to which it is kind of subjective. Next, oxidation. Oxidation is a fault that happens when oxygen gets in contact with the wine, usually because the cork dried up, shriveled, and let oxygen into the bottle. That's why you have to store wines on their side. The cork can only maintain its seal if it's damp, so it has to stay in contact with the wine. If the wine does come into contact with the oxygen, it's the same thing as if you left an apple or an avocado out on the counter overnight. It turns brown and it tastes funny. If the wine is oxidized, you can send it back and get another bottle of the same wine because again, it's most likely a bottle-to-bottle fault. Lastly is TCA, which is something you may have heard referred to as being corked or as cork taint. Don't giggle. It doesn't mean there's bits of cork in the wine. It means there's a chemical compound in either the cork or the barrel where the wine was stored that has infected the wine. Corked wines smell like wet cardboard and musty basement, and for some people that are really sensitive, it can be so strong that it's nauseating. cork taint can spread from one wine to another if the wines are stored in close proximity to each other in a cellar for a long period of time. This is really only an issue if it's the kind of restaurant that might actually have a cellar and the wine has a lot of age on it. If it's the kind of restaurant where they probably go through their wines pretty often, you don't really have to worry about it and can probably get a different bottle of the same wine. If any of those faults were present in your wine, you can and absolutely should send the wine back. As a restaurant manager, I can assure you that any half-decent server will happily take back the wine and exchange it with something else. They want you to enjoy your experience, not sit there miserable drinking vinegar all night because you didn't think you could or should send back a wine. Something you should absolutely not send a wine back for is tartrate crystals. Tartrate crystals, or wine diamonds, are just tartaric acid that has fallen out of solution and crystallized on the bottom of the cork. A few might end up in your glass where they look like sugar that doesn't dissolve. Some people think it's broken glass and will refuse to drink the wine, but I promise it is totally tasteless, odorless, and absolutely harmless. Sending back a wine for these crystals is frankly a total waste of good wine. If I can save just one bottle by telling you this now, I will have done my job. So, once you've determined the wine is good, the server will pour full glasses for everyone at the table, traditionally starting with the women and then the men and then the host. Once you finish your first glass, an attentive server should come over and pour you more, but if it happens so fast they didn't see you, then you're totally allowed to pour yourself more. If you don't finish the bottle, presumably because Captain America or something equally important came up, you're usually allowed to take it home if they reseal it, put it in a bag, and then staple your receipt to it. However, state laws differ on this, so make sure you ask your server first. And there you have it, the full choreography of the song and dance that goes along with ordering a bottle of wine. I hope you'll try it out soon. Cheers, winos!